Hi learners, myself Nandhini, Department of Computer Science SF, the Standard Fireworks Rajaratnam College for Women. Today we are going to talk about Entity Relationship Model. This session contains introduction of ER model, what is entity, types of entity and attributes and their types. Let's start the session. ER model describes the structure of a database with the help of a diagram. It is a conceptual model for designing a database. This model represents the logical structure of a database, including entities, their attributes and relationship between them. It allows to draw database design. It is an easy to use graphical tool for modeling data. It is widely used in database design. It is a GUI representation of the logical structure of a database. It helps you to identify the entities which exist in a system and the relationship between those entities. An entity represents a real world object. Next, components of ER model. First one is entity. Entity contains strong entity and weak entity. Next one is attributes. There are 4 types of attributes: key attribute, composite attribute, derived attribute and multi-valued attributes. Next one is relationship. One to one, one to many to one and many to many. First we are going to see entity. An entity represents a real world object, concept or thing about which data is stored in a database. It acts as a building block of a database. Example of entities: real world objects like person, car, employee, etc. Concept like course, event, reservation, etc. Things like product, document, device, etc. The entity type defines the structure of an entity, while individual instances of that type represent specific entities. An entity is represented as a rectangle in an ER diagram. For example, in the following ER diagram, we have 2 entities, student and college, and these 2 entities have many to one relationship as many students study in a single college. Next, entity set. An entity refers to an individual object of an entity type, and the collection of all entities of a particular type is called an entity set. For example, E1 is an entity that belongs to the entity type student, and the group of all students form the entity set. Next one is weak entity. A weak entity cannot be uniquely identified by its own attributes alone. It depends on a strong entity to be identified. A weak entity is associated with an identifying entity, which helps in its identification. A weak entity are represented by double rectangle. The participation of a weak entity type is always total. The relationship between the weak entity type and its identifying strong entity type is called identifying relationship, and it is represented by a double diamond. Next one is strong entity. A strong entity is a type of entity that has a key attribute that can uniquely identify each instance of the entity. A strong entity does not depend on any other entity in the schema for its identification. It has a primary key that ensures its uniqueness and is represented by a rectangle in an ER diagram. Next, attributes. Attributes are the properties that define the entity type. For example, for a student entity, roll number, name, date of birth, age, address and mobile number are the attributes that define entity type student. In ER diagram, the attribute is represented by an oval. There are 4 types: key attribute, composite, multi-valued and derived attribute. The first one is key attribute. The attribute which uniquely identifies each entity in the entity set is called key attribute. For example, roll number will be unique for each student. In ER diagram, the key attribute is represented by an oval with an underline. Next, composite attribute. An attribute composed of many other attributes is called composite attribute. For example, the address attribute of the student entity type consists of street, city, state and country. Next, multi-valid attributes. An attribute consisting of more than one value for a given entity. For example, hobbies can be more than one for a given student. In ER diagram, a multi-valid attribute is represented by double oval. Derived attribute. An attribute that can be derived from other attributes of the entity type. It is known as a derived attribute. Example, age can be derived from date of birth. In ER diagram, the derived attribute is represented by a dashed oval. Next, relationship type. A relationship type represents the association between entity types. For example, enrolled in is a relationship type that exists between entity type student and course. This is an example for ER diagram. Here rectangle shape represents entity set, ellipse represent attributes, lines represent link attribute to entity set and entity set to relationship set. Double ellipse represent multi-valid attributes and dashed ellipse represent derived attributes. If you are willing to learn, no one can help you. If you are determined to learn, no one can stop you. I hope you will learn ER model from this video. Happy learning. Thank you.